You're watching Good Afternoon Kentucky with Erica Bivens and T.G. Shock.
Hey, welcome back. Since it's election day, we are getting an update on how things are going at those polls and some updated numbers. We've got Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams joining us by phone with the latest. Good afternoon, Secretary Adams. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right, so let's talk about how things are going so far for everyone who did choose to vote in person at the polls today. What's sort of been the feedback you've heard so far?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. It's a beautiful day. People are going to the polls in pretty high numbers across the state. The lines would be longer if we hadn't had already 250,000 Kentuckians voting last week for our new early voting. We do have some spots that have lines of an hour to 2 hours, but they're moving very efficiently, and I think they'll thin out here pretty soon.
Very good. Any other issues? I know your office has really stressed election security as a top priority.
I'm glad to say that you've had, unfortunately, I'm not glad to say you've had problems in other states, but there have been problems in other states, and we've managed to avoid those so far. We've really had a very smooth day. You've had a Secretary of State's website go down in another state. There was a hacking. Nothing like that here. It's been very, very clean and clear and smooth.
Very good. Any updated numbers that you can give us right now, maybe absentee ballots or numbers at the polls?
Well, as of 11 this morning, we had received in 86% of the absentee ballots that we sent out, which means there's about 11,000 still out there. I want to encourage any voter that has an absentee ballot to go ahead and get that back to us. You need to get it to us at our drop box in your county, or there may be multiple, but take it to your county clerk's office or take it to a voting location and put it in the drop box so we can count your vote. We can't count it if we get it after the polls close, because that's when we count up the votes. So be sure and get those back to us as soon as you can.
I want to take a moment, too, to address early voting now that it's sort of over and we can look back a little bit to see how things went. Do you think that expanded access really helped voters?
Yeah, I think it helped the voters that showed up and took advantage of it. Over 250,000 did. It was easier for them to vote on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday than it was on a Tuesday, but they also did a big, solid favor for the people that voted today, because you would have 250,000 people in line right now otherwise. Making these lines even longer. So my hope is that the fact that early voting was so popular, and especially at this point, the fact that you had an even number of Democrats and Republicans using it, suggests that this is not a partisan thing where Democrats vote early or Republicans vote early. It's for everybody, and both sides are really enjoying it.
For all voters, that's for sure. I know it's still election day, but is there anything that you'd maybe like to see changed in the next go-round? Perhaps more polling locations, even more voting, early voting days, or anything else?
I absolutely want to come back to the legislature with proposals for further election reform. I may do that as soon as Thursday when I testify to the legislature about how this election went. I do have some ideas. One of them is going to be some sort of plan to ensure that we do have more locations for Election Day. We did have some counties that went further than I wanted in reduction of their locations. I don't really have the ability to do anything about it. But we're going to have to either have more early voting locations or more Election Day locations, or both, to address that.
Sure. Any final thoughts, Secretary Adams? Perhaps advice for voters?
Well, make sure you bring your photo ID. That's something that we implemented, photo ID to vote. You'll get through a lot quicker if you show up with your ID, and as well, take your sample ballot with you. You can get that on our website, sos.ky.gov. You can study up on all the candidates before you show up and vote, and that'll save you some time as well. And last point, today there's going to be kooky rumors out there about stuff happening that's not really happening. Fraud or suppression or what have you. It happens every election. Just ignore it. The way to get real information is from legitimate news sources like this station and legitimate people like our office, the State Board of Elections, the county clerk. These are people that work for you and have your best interest at heart, unlike the people that have egg avatars on Twitter and just spread misinformation.
Very good point. Secretary Adams, thank you so much for your time. I know you were incredibly busy out there today.
All right, don't forget to vote.
All right, thank you so much. Stick around. We've got to look at your headlines right after this.